There's a feeling a lot of Americans share right now, even if they describe it differently. It's the sense that you're doing what you're supposed to do, working, budgeting, being responsible, but somehow it still feels harder. And what's confusing is that, on paper, things don't look like a crisis. Unemployment isn't exploding. Inflation headlines say prices are cooling. The economy isn't officially in a recession. So, why does the middle class feel like it's constantly under pressure? That's what we're unpacking today. For decades, being middle class in the US meant something very specific. It meant stability, not wealth so much as in wealth, but predictability. You could plan, absorb a surprise bill, you could make progress slowly, and trust that effort would eventually translate into comfort. But that sense of stability is what's changed. It didn't happen all at once, not in a way that's easy to point to, but gradually and persistently. One of the biggest reasons the middle class feels squeezed is that the cost of essentials has risen faster than the things that define middle class security. Housing, healthcare, energy, these aren't optional expenses. They're not things you can easily cut back on. So even if wages rise modestly, they often rise after these costs have already moved higher. That creates a feeling that every raise just helps you keep up, instead of helping you get ahead. Another part of the squeeze is how inflation shows up in real life. Inflation doesn't hit evenly. It doesn't raise every price by the same amount at the same time, but concentrates pressure in very specific places. Rent renewals, grocery trips, utility bills. These are monthly reminders, and when those reminders stack up, even small increases begin to feel heavy. That's why inflation can seem slow statistically while still feeling intense emotionally. Debt also plays a quiet role here too. For many middle class households, debt isn't reckless, it's structural. Mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit cards used as buffers, not luxuries. So, when interest rates rises, the cost of carrying that structure rises with it. And even when rates stop going up, the damage doesn't instantly reverse. The payment stays higher, the breathing room stays smaller. So, households adjust. Defensively, they delay, they downgrade, and most times they hesitate. There's also something psychological happening that doesn't get talked about enough. The middle class isn't just under financial pressure, it's under expectation pressure. People were told that if they followed certain steps, stability would follow. Get an education, work consistently, be responsible with money. Many of us did exactly that. And now we're looking around wondering why the payoff feels smaller than it was supposed to. That gap between effort and outcome is exhausting and creates a stress that isn't about poverty, it's about uncertainty. Another reason the squeeze feels constant is that the middle class has become the economy's buffer. When costs rise, companies try not to shock consumers, so they raise prices slowly. They shrink products and remove discounts. When governments respond, they tend to target extremes, the most vulnerable or the largest institutions, and over time, what's left gets absorbed in the middle. That's why the squeeze feels invisible to policymakers, but obvious to households. Housing deserves its own moment here. Housing isn't just shelter anymore, it's the anchor of middle class life. And when housing costs rise faster than income, everything else becomes fragile. Renters feel trapped, homeowners feel locked in, buyers feel shut out. That single pressure point ripples outward: less savings, more debt reliance, delayed life decisions. And this creates a sense that no matter where you stand, the ladder feels farther away. What makes this moment different from past cycles is that the middle class isn't dealing with one problem. They're dealing with many moderate problems at the same time, none of them catastrophic on their own, but together they compress financial freedom. That is why the stress feels constant. So, what does this mean going forward? It doesn't mean the middle class is disappearing, rather, that the definition of doing okay is shifting. The economy is rewarding flexibility more than predictability, awareness more than assumption, planning more than optimism. The households that feel the least pressure aren't necessarily earning the most, they're the ones adapting the fastest. One important thing to understand is this: the middle class didn't suddenly fail, the system around it changed, and recognizing that shift is the first step toward navigating it without confusion, guilt, or misplaced blame. Because this pressure isn't a personal failure, it's a structural one, and once you see that clearly, the squeeze starts to make sense.